that contain those words, and that we're dealing with the same kind of tithes. You heard me, kind of tithes. There were multiple kinds of tithes detailed in the Old Testament. Depending on how you count them, it might be 4, it might be 5. Okay, I'm going to say there's 4, and I'm going to give you detail for each one of them. All right, for each one of them. So you see the divisions there. First of all, it's the Old Covenant, and then in the Old Covenant, there's tithing incidents that came before the law. We need to take a look at those. Not looking at those first, obviously. And then really the most important part of this are the next section, the creation of the tithing laws. That in that section, those first 5 books, they created, all the laws were created. But I want to focus on the tithing laws and when they were created. The next section, it says additional scriptures. Now you notice that's still in the Old Testament. Here's now scriptures where we can read where tithing was spoken about, tithing was practiced, and of course in Malachi there was a great warning about tithing. Now, I'm actually not going to spend a lot of time, I'm not going to spend any time talking about these additional scriptures with the exception of Malachi, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Why not? The reason I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it is because I just told you that we are free from the law. We are free from it, all right? Those things that the law required do not apply to us. Right, those we're talking about tithing right now. Okay, they don't apply to us. Likewise, just to give you for comparison, there's much detail there in the Bible that talks about how a priest should be dressed. Now, we could have a little Bible study session and study every garment and every tassel and everything that the priest had to wear and what it meant, the little phylacteries and the tassels and the this and the that. We could study all those things. All right, but what would it benefit us? There is a principle that's contained in there, yes. Okay, so it wouldn't harm us to study that, but what's the real payoff? Okay, what's the real payoff? Likewise, we can study tithing to death. You can do that with somebody else. You're not going to do it with me. Okay, you can study the subject of tithing to death. And you'll see, I left, if you glanced ahead, I put some question mark in some areas. Right? That's not for you to answer them. You can if you want to. I'm not encouraging you to go further studying the tithing issue. You can study forever. Right? The question is, how should we relate to it now? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for us now? That's what we need to get across. That's what we need to understand. All right. So then the next section has to do with scriptures that are in the New Testament. We're going to look at Jesus' words. That one incident is recorded in 2 Gospels, Matthew 23:23, and the same thing in Luke 11:42. All right. And then there's one other mention of tithing or tenth having to do with giving in Luke 18:12. And then there's mention in epistles as well, a small mention in epistles in the book of Hebrews. So we'll take a look at, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the additional scriptures in the Old Testament where the term was used. I'm also not going to spend a lot of time on Hebrews. All right, in the book I spent some time on it, but I'm not trying to present myself as a tithe master, know everything about it. I'm not trying to make you a tithe master, a person who would know all about the tithe. What you leave here with, what I'm going to give you here is going to be pretty significant as it is, okay? Just as it is. The next document that I prepared for you is the one titled Other Israelite Occupations. Right, and notice on their partial listing. This is not this is not a complete list of all Israelite occupations at that time. This is just a partial list. I have a point to make with that, and we'll get to it at that time. The next chart here, and this is the one with most of the question marks on it. You'll enjoy this. For those of you that want to find something wrong with my presentation, that'll be easy. All right. This is not the perfect presentation. This is not, okay? This is a presentation intended to cause you to think, all right? You ought to check out what I'm saying. Make sure that what I'm saying, I'm interpreting the principles correctly, okay? Interpreting the principles correctly. Up until now, a lot of you have been dealing with people trying to interpret the law correctly. It's really bigger than that. Okay, what principles is God trying to get across? And speaking about principles, let me deviate for just a moment. What Jesus said, and what I quoted earlier in Matthew 22, he talked about two things. The greatest commandment being your relationship with God, loving God, and then the second part being the relationship with man. That is very consistent. When you look at the 10 Commandments, the first several commandments deal with your relationship with God, and the next ones, what? Deal with your relationship with individuals, with your neighbors. All right. So this is very, very consistent. All right. Jesus was very consistent. You're not surprised, are you? Okay. This chart, the Israelites' 7-year cycle and Jubilee. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. The point is, there were tithing did not occur. The different tithes occurred at different times, right? There were multiple tithes. I said 4, right? At least 4, depending on how you count them. And as we go through, you can reference this list. I'll reference this list so you can see what I'm talking about here. And the last chart is hopefully the most interesting one, required tithes under the law, all right? Now, if you're going to follow along with me, I suggest that you make 5 copies of this sheet for yourself. Each person would have 5 blank copies, all right? Even though there's 4, I'm talking about 4 tithes, I divide one of them up into 2, and to me, it would work better if you had 5 blank sheets. So we name the tithe, and then I look to answer each one of these questions. What does it say? Why, who, what, when, where, how, and who did they give it to? Okay, we want to answer each one of those questions. I want to show you, I want to simplify for you to show you that that these tithes are very distinct, they're very separate, and they're pretty clear. I have some question marks there. Pretty clear on what is supposed to happen. Who's supposed to receive the tithe, who's supposed to give it, where's it supposed to go. It's great. Most of it I was able to follow in there, and I want to follow it in the scriptures. And I want to share that with you. As I said, I've got a couple of question marks in a few of these spots as well. Right? I'm not trying to make you a tithe master. I'm not a tithe master, so to speak. I can't tell you everything about it. Okay. Now, as I told you, this is a multi-part presentation. This has been part 3. I appreciate you watching or listening. Some of you are listening by tape, and some of you are watching this by video. Thank you for doing either. I hope you plan on joining me next time as we continue in this series, The Truth About Tithing.